The Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75Q sewing machine is loaded with decorative stitches, and it's also loaded with functions. So let's talk about some of the functions that I use the most and why sometimes they disappear and they're not there when you just used them a few minutes ago with a different stitch. So we have free video tutorials on this machine. You can find a link in the description below where you can watch them all. We also learn a lot about decorative stitches and functions and how to put them all together in our Husqvarna Viking Stitching Cosmos online course. So that quilt in the background, every block is a different technique. So if you want to give yourself a reason to really utilize this machine and all of its fabulous functions, features, and stitches, I hope you'll check out the free videos that we have set up for you to check out and see if that course might be right for you. So here, let's just go around and we're going to take a quick highlight of this machine's functions. So right now, when you turn the machine on, you get to a straight stitch and you just see stitches. To see a lot of the functions that we're talking about, number one, there are areas along the side of the touch screen, right here on the black part, that are functions. So you can touch those. So sometimes when you're looking on screen, you got to realize that some of them are right here along the edge and a few across the bottom. But whatever you're looking for, once you select a stitch, touch where you have the little picture of the sewing information, and then that way that's what opens up and gives you additional symbols that you can use with that stitch. So for example, here's where we would use a function for adjusting tension. So if you are using different threads in your needle than you are in your bobbin, your stitches might not be balanced and you can balance them out right there. If you need free motion quilting, so meaning the foot's not going to come super flat on that fabric, you need it to hover, we can go into free motion quilting. And the way I remember this is free motion quilting is it looks like a pile of spaghetti. Okay, so here when you go into it, you have the option to select free motion floating, a spring action, or ruler foot. So those are three different kinds of free motion feet. You tell the machine which one you're actually using, and then the machine will go into the correct part of it that makes sense for that particular foot. So if you unbubble them or make them so they're no longer blue, that means you've turned them off, and then we're back to a normal setting. We haven't left it on when you're stitching. But if you do find yourself touching it and then coming out, it does highlight blue, so that would be your indication that that symbol has been activated. So you can come back in here, unactivate it, and then close it back out. If you are ever wondering what something is, touch the question mark in the top corner, and that's kind of on that black part as well, and touch the symbol. That's going to give you the definition of what it is, and you can either find a video on it or look it up in your manual. Here, what is this one? You kind of see like a picture of a decorative stitch and like a clock that is resetting. And that is when, I use that a lot with my decorative stitches, especially in the Stitching Cosmos course, where we are finding, like I start a decorative stitch and maybe you just stop in the middle of it, you're kind of done, and then if you were going to start it again, you'd be starting in the middle. So this would actually return you back to the beginning of that stitch. So that is a stitch kind of restart in that part. Let's kind of work over here. We have things like our favorite stitches. So for saving them, you can get them to save into your favorite stitches. We're going to do a lot with that when we get to the memory part or programming part of this machine. We have a trash can, which is more, again, in the programming, because if you put something in, you're like, oh, I didn't want that, you would touch the trash can to remove it. All right, let me actually get to a stitch that is, touch and hold that top tab to get all the stitches to appear. Let's pick a stitch that's kind of not symmetrical. How about this one, number one? You can see those leaves stitch first from their vine to the leaf, and then a vine to the leaf. So when we want to mirror image it, that's what these next two functions are for. Flip it up and down, flip it left and right, flip it left and right and up and down, and now it starts at the leaves and go to the vine. So you've got 4 directions that you can place a decorative stitch to stitch, and I do use that often. So instead of like flipping my fabric so the stitch is going the right direction, I'll just flip the stitch. Sometimes flipping the fabric means all the bulk of the fabric lands in this area, and I don't want that. I want it to always kind of be to the left of the needle. Mirror image functions are the best. Okay, so those I mentioned about sometimes functions don't appear when you have certain stitches applied. So we do find, for example, I'm going to go to where the buttonholes are, and I'm going to choose a buttonhole. Here we go. Now when we go into that information, we have similar things. I was thinking there'd be a different function per se, but not exactly on this machine. But sometimes when you are not needing to do a function with a particular stitch, then it just doesn't, there's other functions. For example, well, I guess it is going to let me free motion quilt a buttonhole. Okay, so, well, you never know. I like that this machine doesn't limit me should I wish to free motion a buttonhole, but ideally that probably wouldn't be the best way to do a buttonhole. But yes, you do have different functions for different stitches from time to time. So I hope this is giving you an idea. Number 1, that the question mark is your friend. Touch it anytime that you want to know what something is, and then it will tell you. And then don't forget that some of your functions you're looking for or that I'm speaking about are actually on the outside of the touch screen. So I hope you're trying out these as you go, kind of start to work with them as maybe if you're just trying your stitch book. If you haven't tried stitching out a few of the decorative stitches, we have a video in the description below about how to make a stitch book and all the fun things, why you'd want to make a stitch book in the first place. And again, I invite you to check out some of the free video tutorials for learning over 25 different sewing techniques that this machine does beautifully with in our Stitching Cosmos online course.